WTXM.org. This is Andrew Clendenin with the World of Texas Music. This podcast will be produced in South Padre Island, the very southern tip of Texas on the Gulf of Mexico and next to the country of Mexico. Today's podcast will feature Billy Stull. Billy is quite an icon of the world of Texas music, inventor, songwriter, guitarist, promoter, producer, record executive, and many, many more things. Billy, welcome to the world of Texas music.
Shake Yo Snake, Billy Stull. Tell us about your new song.
Well, it's not a new song. It's an old song. Actually, a couple of years ago, I found out that the most viewed video on YouTube was by a guy named Psy from Korea, and it's called Gangnam Style. It had over 3 billion views. And so I was familiar with it, and I looked at it and I said, that's a stupid dance song, and I have a stupid dance song that I wrote a long time ago. So if that's what people are enjoying, I think I'll just try to accommodate them. So I went back this song I wrote a long time ago, and there's kind of a long story about how it came about, but it's a song and a dance. It's called Shake Yo Snake, and the dance is, it goes, your right hand's up, bent at the wrist, sitting on your left hand just like this. And now shake your snake. Next to mine, it's looking funny, but it's feeling fine. Now shake your snake. So I wrote it back a long time ago when I lived in Amarillo, and I had a band, and we would go out on weekends and play. And back then, it was a dance kind of thing. You know, you'd have 200 or 300, 400 people out there dancing. So I would say, hey, I got a new dance I want to show you. So I would show them how to do Shake Yo Snake, and if you see 300 or 400 people out there doing what I just described, it is so funny we couldn't even hardly play. I mean, they were entertaining us, you know. And so I actually took it over. I recorded it in my own studio there in Amarillo, and I took it over to Norman Petty, which is Buddy Holly's producer. We'll talk about him more later on. But he liked it, and he put it out on his own record label.
Okay. What year was this now?
In the late 70s.
Okay.
A long time ago. Okay. So I was way ahead of my time. And so anyway, he put it out, and it was kind of a regional hit. It was before internet and all that. So there it was, and then when I saw, stupid dance song getting that many hits, I bounced it off a few friends. I said, oh, you should do that. So a funny story, I went out to a little club here. I live at South Padre Island, and there's a little restaurant that on Sunday nights they have a band, and you can go sit in with them. So I had some friends. I said, yeah, check it out. So I said, well, I'll go try it out. So Sunday night I went out there, and I sit in, and I did the song just like I did in the old days and got everybody to do the dance. There's maybe 20 people there. So there was a lady, had to be in her 80s, out there doing it, and she was eating the snake and had a gold glittery dress on, and I mean, it was hilarious. So anyway, it went good. Everybody said, yeah, this is great. So I was putting my guitar in my car trunk outside after I got through. And there's a part in the song that I call croaking. It's a long story how it came about, but it goes, shake your snake, shake your snake, which that's a sound you probably never knew your body could make. You have to stick your tongue out to do it. So I was putting my guitar in my car trunk, and this lady pulled up behind me in an SUV, and she rolled her window down, and she said, and she drove off. And I said, okay.
You knew it was a hit then.
That's my sign. That's my sign. So I went to a studio in San Marcos, a studio I used to office at the university there, like a $3 million studio, and I recorded it, and I did a video. And the video is out. They can go watch it now.
So you can learn the dance on the video now.
You can see the whole video. Be sure and watch to the end of it because it shows a bunch of people doing the dance. You know? And it's a levity generator. It's a stupid dance song, like I say. It's definitely fun. And then I have some interest from America's Got Talent.
Oh, really?
An echo of that. And at this point, I can't tell you. I'm under contractual agreement. But I can say that I auditioned for America's Got Talent. Tune in this summer. All right. Well, it's already this summer, but by the time
Coming soon.
Yeah. So there's a good possibility you might get to, millions and millions of people might see that. So that would be kind of a home run. It'd take me a lot of, bar gigs to reach that many people, So anyway, that's kind of...
So the world may be turned on to Shake Yo Snake.
Shake Yo Snake. Now, yeah, definitely that dance.
That's great. I love that story.
And you can see it on YouTube for sure.
Sure.
Just go to Shake Yo, Y-O, Snake.
Right.
Billy Stull, S-T-U-L-L. So if you want to, 3 minutes of
fun.
foolishness and fun. Oh, yeah. Got to have fun,
So tell us, what was your first memory of music?
Okay, when I was 10 years old, my mom signed me up for guitar lessons. No, for piano lessons, okay? And I hated piano lessons. I was like, frequently, quote, forget to go to the lessons. And,
Never practiced.
Just when I had to, these little songs. And so finally, after 2 years, my parents said, well, if you don't want to play piano, what do you want to play? I want to play guitar. So, okay, so they signed me up for guitar lessons. And in 3 years, I had 13 different teachers. I learned everything they could teach me. I remember my mom even drove 50 miles each way to get me a guitar lesson. And so they really supported it. So I just was in love with guitar from that point on. And I saw Elvis on TV,
right, sure.
And that was kind of a inspiration. I guess that was exciting and electric. And
well, now, was this an electric guitar or acoustic guitar that you started on?
I started on electric, yeah.
So you went right to the power.
Well, it was played the same way back then. Of course, you played the same notes and the same instruction. But the teacher, I remember, she told my parents. I think the first week she went home with a loaner acoustic guitar, which is tough on your fingers,
sure.
hard to learn. And then next week or two, she said, hey, I know some people have a used electric guitar and amplifier, and you might want to consider it. And for $90, I think it was, we got a Gibson SG and a little Gibson amp. And it wasn't the cool Gibson SG. It was actually it was a Les Paul Jr.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. And then, so I took lessons, and there was a lady in town that was the guitar teacher, and so I started taking lessons from her eventually after all these other teachers. And so anyway, I was in junior high by then, and they had a talent show. And so...
In Amarillo?
In Amarillo,
okay.
Yeah. And so I signed up for the talent show, and I'm going to play my little guitar song. And they had a bunch of people on there, and the teacher that was in charge of the talent show suggested that me and this other guy that played guitar do a duet to save time. All right, so we were taking lessons from the same teacher. We knew the same little song. So we did it. We won the talent show. I think we won $25. And I'm like, $25 for playing guitar?
You're now a professional.
That is
paid
amazing.
To play.
So we started a band, me and this other guy. And so we started playing, private parties and anywhere we could play. And it turned into a 4-piece band. We became the most popular band in Amarillo, Texas. We got signed to a record deal by Buddy Holly's producer, Norman Petty.
Right.
And the name of the band was The Chords, C-O-R-D-S.
Okay.
And we had corduroy coats that looked like Beatle suits, and Beatle boots, and we had our name monogrammed and the chords on these corduroys. Back then, the slang for, corduroy was cool, so
sure.
You wore your chords.
Right.
So that was kind of a play on words, the chords, and of course guitar chords, but it was C-O-R-D-S. There's also records out there on YouTube of that old band, but that talent show and that, putting us together started this
Launched
whole
your
thing.
career. Yeah.
Signed with Norman Petty, Buddy Holly's producer. He got us record deals. First record was on Atco. And Aretha Franklin was our label mate at that time. It was happening. And then the Beatles came in and kind of wiped out everybody. You know?
Right.
So we never got real big, but we were, big time regionally. And I got to know Norman Petty very well. This is after Buddy Holly's.
Did you ever meet Buddy Holly? Did you know Buddy Holly?
No, Buddy died, in 57. Or was it 59? Yeah, I think it's 59. And I didn't go over to Norman's until 63. But later on, I'll jump forward. Well, I'll tell you some more about Buddy Holly later on after.
Yeah.
So anyway, I worked my way through college playing in this band. And I graduated from college, and then, the draft was active back then, so I had to go in the military. The band broke up. And I came back and from the military, and I'd never had a job. I went to work, the only real job I guess I've ever had. I went to work for a wholesale company there in Amarillo. And, I couldn't put anything on my resume, professional hippie or something, And but anyway, I worked for them for a year. Meanwhile, I started recording people in my garage there in Amarillo. And I started doing jingles. And I would watch TV, and there's some local company that advertised a lot, but they didn't have a jingle. And I'd go to them and say, if I wrote you a jingle and produced it and you liked it, would you buy it?
Right.
And they would go, well, yeah, of course. So I did one for a furniture store, and I got, a living room suit out of it.
Sure.
And I did one for a restaurant, and I got a bunch of, free food at the restaurant. And I did one for a bank, and, of course, they gave me money. That was their product. And
that's good.
I think there's a Mexican restaurant that still uses that.
Still uses it. That's great.
Yeah, all these years, the Plaza Restaurant. Let's go down to the Plaza. Oh, man. And so anyway.
Now how old are you at this point when you're
I'm
writing jingles?
I'm in the early 20s.
Okay.
And
so you knew where you were going to be?
Well, I was influenced by recording with Norman Petty.
Okay.
He recorded our band, The Chords. And so I smitten with the recording bug, So I started, that's where it was.
So you were a dedicated professional musician and audio engineer, jingle producer at that age. You were serious about taking that on as a career.
Yeah, except the next phase was much bigger.
Oh, yes? Well, let's hear about it.
So I put this studio in my garage. I went out to the carpet store and got in their dumpster and got all these scrap carpet samples and put them up on my wall,
sure.
And it
Acoustic.
looked cool in there, and it was like cheap soundproofing, and it worked, and I had an old Tascam 4-track machine was my recorder, and it didn't even have sync. I'd have to bounce back and forth from a 2-track to the 4-track. But anyway, so I had some people knew me, and they sent a client over to me. It was a lady from New Mexico. It's kind of a Dolly Parton look-alike and sound-alike. And while I was out in the garage recording her husband drank all the liquor we had in the house and everything. He had too, and passed out on my kitchen floor. I said, I got to get away from the house on this. So I went out this old shopping center there in Amarillo that was abandoned, basically, and rented a little place for cheap. And I put my studio in the back, and I would teach guitar lessons and record people like I did in the garage. And then up in front, I'd put a little stuff for sale. I think I had $75 worth of strings and picks, a Coke machine, an old Farfisa organ, and a used acoustic guitar.
Farfisa, that rings a bell.
Yeah. I called it Billy's Band-Aid. Well, I had that store. It grew about $100,000 a year. I got franchises. Added a recording studio to it, a warehouse, a sound company that we would do sound for all these big shows that would come in. And it became, I had one space, and then I got another one and another one. I had like 5 places in that shopping center. Then I opened a branch store in Lubbock, Billy's Band-Aid in Lubbock. So that became this huge music store, recording studio. It was like Guitar Center, except way before the time.
So you're a musician turned entrepreneur and businessman.
Yeah.
So you're growing a business. Are you still writing jingles at that time?
No. I had my own studio. I put the full studio in.
Okay.
I was running 16 track by then, and mostly just recording people that came in and just charged them.
You fall into kind of a Les Paul type personality. You're a great guitar player, inventor, and I know you've worked with a fellow that some people credit for inventing the recording console, Rupert Neve. Tell us about how you met Rupert.
Well, okay, back before that, Norman Petty, who was Buddy Holly's producer, died. All right, so I had this giant music store going, Lubbock and Amarillo. Norman Petty would call me and go, "Billy, you want to play on a recording session this weekend? It'll pay $75, And so I'd hand the keys to my staff and say, "Okay, you guys watch this $1 million a year store. I'm going over to record with Norman Petty." So I went over and I did lots of sessions with Norman. Plus,
now he was in Clovis, New Mexico.
He was in Clovis,
yes.
about 100 miles from Amarillo, and he had built a new studio in a movie theater. Had 500 seats, had 20 miles of gold chain hanging in designs within there, had a live echo chamber, had a 9-foot grand piano. It was like a spaceship downtown Clovis, New Mexico. And, of course, Norman was amazing. We could spend a whole podcast on him. But so, anyway, I was kind of his protege. And then he died of leukemia. I guess this was 70. Yeah, I don't remember exactly what year now. I got a good memory. It's just short. But anyway, he had got leukemia and he died. Well, I still continued to run my store. My studio got bigger, and I had another store in Lubbock and this and that. And my first employee came to me, got a money partner, and wanted to buy me out. And I quoted them a price, and they came up with the money. And that freed me up to be able to go over and run the Norman Petty studio for the estate. So Norman, who was my mentor, my inspiration, died, and all of a sudden I became the person running his whole operation. I worked with his widow. And not only did I do sessions in that new studio, but we started the Clovis Music Festival, which we did every year based on people that had recorded, there at Norman's, including Roy Orbison and a lot of other people. And then Warner Brothers Records got a hold of me and asked me if I wanted to start a new record label for them of Spanish language music.
Now, what year is this?
Okay, this is in the 90s. Yeah. So I was there at Norman's and running that studio. I had sold Billy's Band-Aid.
Right. How did Warner find you, and how did all that work out?
Okay, the general manager of Warner Brothers was a guy named Eddie Reeves, and he was from Amarillo. I knew him, and he had bands back when, when I was learning to play. I'd go out and watch his band play, And then we got to know each other, and it just so happened that his father died. Eddie went on to do many, many things. He wrote songs for Sonny and Cher, run publishing companies in New York, was in California. He was deep in the music business, and his father died. He lived in Amarillo, and he went back to run his father's businesses, and one of his businesses was the shopping center that I had Billy's Band-Aid music store. So,
Small world.
Hey, Eddie, world star, writer of Sonny and Cher songs, I got a leak in my roof. Can you come? We used to laugh about that. And so, we got back together again, and then he got hired by Warner Nashville to run. He knew Jim Ed Norman, who was the head of Warner Nashville, and Jim Ed, "Hey, Eddie, come out here and help me run this company." So he did. So he went out to Nashville, and of course I went to see him many, many times.
Sure.
The first time I called him after he didn't even know anything about country music, and I went over to his house, he'd been a rock guy,
Right.
And I went over to his house before he went to Nashville and played him a bunch of country records, kind of get him up to speed,
Tutored him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he went out there, and I got ready to go visit him in Nashville. I always have stuff to pitch, different artists. I called him, and the reception, Eddie Reeves, please. Who's calling? Billy Stull. And so Eddie gets on the phone, and he goes, he didn't even say hello. He said, "Is your roof leaking?" "Well, I don't care if it is or not. Just we had just so much fun. So anyway, as they developed, they decided to do a Spanish language label.
Okay.
And so he asked me. He said, "We know this is going to be a big thing. Selena was coming up, but we don't have time to go figure it out. We know you're honest, and I know you, and we'll let you." Get on an expense account. You can travel around, listen to different bands, and when you think you know what you're doing, you can sign one, and we'll hire you to produce it and market it." And I said, "You mean I find them, I record them, I market them, and promote them? There's nobody to blame anything on if something goes wrong. What do you mean?" And they laughed. They said, so anyway, I did that. So I left Clovis eventually to do that full-time, moved back to Texas. I was in New Mexico, Clovis.
Sure.
And wound up in San Marcos. Okay.
San Marcos, Texas.
Right. At the university. The university offered me a free office there in the Fire Station recording studio, which is kind of famous. It recorded, Stevie Ray Vaughan and a lot of different people. First digital recording studio in the time. So I was there, and I started my own record label, and one of the first acts I did was a guy named Brad Mall, who's on General Hospital, soap star.
Oh, really?
We did a couple of records on Brad. He was a good friend of mine from back in Amarillo, too. And that was, you go to the grocery store and soap opera magazine on the side, Brad Mall has a new record. Oh, we sold with the 800 number back then.
Okay.
Oh, we sold lots of records. And then George Strait's band, the Ace and the Hole band,
Sure.
I got to know those guys. And they told me that George took a year off, mostly a year off, and had given them permission to do their own record. He owns the name, but it's kind of, since we're not playing, you guys can go do that.
Sure.
So they knew me, and they knew that I had this label, so we talked about it, and I produced the Ace and the Hole band, George Strait's band. He's had all these years. The one and only record that they've ever done. It's a great record. You can still find it out there. And so we had this little Texas World Records, we call it, with those two artists. And then I decided that I wanted to get into mastering. I went to a demonstration that I was invited to of some mastering equipment in Austin, and there was people there that were doing it, and they played what they were doing, and I'm like,
there's a difference.
There's a lot of art in Austin, but the science hasn't caught up with it.
Right.
So anyway, various things. I decided to put in a high-end mastering studio.
So tell us what mastering is. A lot of people have a hard time with that and understanding what that is.
Everything's gotten more sophisticated, just like everything. And nowadays, you go to a studio. It could be a $3 million studio or your bedroom or anywhere in between, and you record your record, you mix it, you get it good as you can, and then you send it to a professional like me, and I take it and make it bigger, better, louder, smoother, deeper, enhance it, more consistent. I don't record it, but I do the post-production, make it dramatically better.
Do you manipulate the waveform, or what is actually happening in there? Just don't get us too technical here, but just kind of give us an idea.
Well, I have specialized equipment and certain skills, and I usually get a stereo master, left and right. Well, I have tools, both digital and analog, that I can go if, let's say, the bass needs some more bass or less bass or a different tone.
Okay.
I can go in and with fine tools, I can manipulate that frequency with these tools without affecting the rest of the spectrum.
I see.
So it's kind of like remixing it, but I only have 2 tracks to work with.
Okay.
And it's dramatically better. Otherwise, I wouldn't. I've been doing mastering for 25 years now. So if it wasn't dramatically better, then,
sure,
I wouldn't be in business.
Of course.
But it's the best money that people spend. And so we're getting to Rupert Neve now.
Yes, let's
All
talk.
right, so
let's hear
I'm
about
there.
Rupert Neve.
Yeah. So I'm there. I put in this mastering studio. Well, meanwhile, Rupert Neve, he is the most famous audio designer in the world.
Right.
The big consoles that you see in these big recording studios that are 15 feet wide. Well, there's 2 brands of those. One is Neve, N-E-V-E, and the other is SSL. Well, Mr. Neve himself moved to Wimberley, Texas from England. And that's like Albert Einstein moving in your neighborhood.
Sure.
And you're a physicist, And so I got to know him. I was just putting in the mastering studio. And we became, very good friends and technical. I mean, you can't go out and talk technical stuff to very many people in the grocery store,
sure.
or wherever. So
Put him to
anyway,
sleep quickly.
we hit it off, and I actually invited him to be part of my mastering studio, but he's English. Well, Billy, I don't know what I would do. I don't know anything about mastering, so if something went wrong, I wouldn't know what to do, but thank you. So, okay, cool. And so anyway, after a couple of years, he was designing for some big companies at that time.
Audio equipment for big companies?
Yeah,
okay.
Professional audio.
And by the way, Dave Grohl bought one of his boards.
Yeah, one of his old classic boards.
Right, yeah.
And his work has been so, fantastic that his old stuff that he did decades ago is worth tons of money. And people that find those old boards, like Dave, they either buy them and use them, or they part them out. They can sell pieces of them for a lot of money.
Sure.
And that kind of irritates Rupert, but he doesn't make any money off those old boards, But anyway, he's a wonderful man, and so he used to call me. Billy, could I come over next week? I have something I'd like you to listen to and hear it on your system. Well, sure, Rupert. Cancel some sessions, Rupert. So anyway, we became friends, and then there was some stuff that I wanted to do in mastering that there wasn't anything out there that could do it, but I had in my mind how it could be done.
Right.
And so I approached Rupert about building me a special box. Well, Billy, what would you want in this box, And so I told him, and he said, I don't think that's ever been done, and I'm not sure you can do that. And it's my fake English accent with a Texas guy here, So he's a very proper English man. So anyway, it challenged him, and he went to England with his laptop, came back a couple months later, had his staff build up a prototype thing, brought it over. Is this what you had in mind, And I said, well, yeah, great. Well, what about this? Would this be good? Yeah. Oh, well, is that your dream box? And, a dream box? Well, if I want my dream box, I want this, this, and this,
Sure.
Well, that started a 3-year process. And he agreed to build me a custom box. It was called Billy's Box. And after a year, I still didn't have my box, and Rupert, I don't have my box. And he goes, well, Billy, it costs a lot of money to make one box. He said, you can make 30 boxes for what it costs to make one. So I was like, well, okay, let's make 30. I'll start a little company, and we'll sell them to other mastering engineers, and I'll get my box, and, it'll all turn out good. Well, he liked that idea because he'd had problems with corporations and stuff in the past. So anyway, that's what we did. 3 years. It was released at the NAMM show in 2006. It's called the Masterpiece Analog Mastering System. And so we sold quite a few the first 2 years, and then we ran into technical problems called RoHS, R-O-H-S. And what it is, the governments of the world eventually started in Europe, restricted the amount of lead that you can put in a electronic box when you make it, because they had, 1 million TV sets in the landfills leaking into the water supply.
For the soldering, I guess.
Yeah. And so anyway, the companies quit making some critical parts that are integral to the masterpiece. So we couldn't get the parts. We had to discontinue it. I've maintained a repair shop all these years for the guys that have them. We still have it. While I'm to this point in the story, I'm going to tell you that recently, a man that worked for Mr. Nee for 10 years and actually worked on the masterpiece mastering system that we did, approached me and said, "Hey, we had fun on that. Let's build
do something else.
So let's build a new product." Well, the last designer I had was the best in the world, so
Sure.
I wasn't too eager to get somebody to design anything again. But then when he showed up, he worked for Mr. Nee for 10 years. He's brilliant in his own right. He's a great guy. And so we started talking about some products that we could make, and we came across an idea. And I'll just tell you that it's going to be something coveted by every singer out there, okay? And there's lots of singers.
Sure.
And so anyway, we'll have some more information about it later on, but it's going to be a new product from Legendary Audio. That's the name of my company that we put together. And every singer in the world is going to have one if they want a career, or if they want to, if they want to sing at Carnegie Hall or their bedroom, they're going to have one of these. So anyway, we're pretty excited about it. We'll have some more information about it. Should be out by the end of the year.
Okay.
So they can keep going to legendaryaudio.com and
keep looking for the news.
Yeah,
right.
We'll have it. And if you're a singer, we probably have your email address, so we'll be
we'll be contacting you.
We've been checking it out. But so anyway, that kind of tied in, the Rupert Nee up to here, and Rupert just a wonderful man. Can't say enough about him.
So it's a great background as far as the invention, and obviously you're a musician and songwriter and jingle writer. You've also helped some people at least get to the finals on a major television program. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, let me back up one more step. We'll talk about inventions. Okay, I have another invention.
Okay.
And I need to tell the world about this. But I don't know how much time we're into here now, but I had a project that came in, and he doesn't know this, Ray Wiley Hubbard. You probably know him.
Sure.
And he lives in Wimberley, and I mastered a lot of stuff for him. And he brought a project, one of his new projects in. He had it produced by a producer in Austin, kind of a famous name guy. And that guy wanted to master it himself. He had his own home studio. But Ray Wiley said, "No, I want to master it." So they came in, and the guy came in with him, and I could tell he wasn't, on board. And so I remember asking, I said, "Well, you got any direction, anything you want to tell me about this for a master?" He goes, "Well, just don't scare the kids." And I'm thinking, well, that clears it up,
That's technical, isn't it?
So anyway, I mastered it, and this producer was trying to be real radical at the time, and the high end was just distorted and smeared, and it just didn't sound good at all. Trying to be aggressive,
Right.
Well, at that time, I couldn't do a lot about it, not like I can now. So anyway, we did the record. There were some really cool songs on there. Snake Farm, a bunch of other really cool. It was a good album. And so anyway, I did it for him, and Ray paid me, but the producer didn't approve it, so he wound up mastering himself. Which that's what he wanted to do in the first place. Well, that particular record, I just couldn't stand that I couldn't fix that high-end distortion. So I started experimenting, and I came up with a process and some techniques that created a new product that I invented. It's called ICE, and ICE stands for In Case of Emergency. And I got with Sonic Studio, which is one of the big, software development companies, mastering software companies. And we partnered up, and it's been 3 years now. It's been out on the market. But this is a anti-distortion plug-in, digital plug-in.
Okay.
It will take distortion away that's already there. If I would have had that back right when I did that Snake Farm pass, I could have cleaned all that up, But I thank Ray and that producer for giving me the impetus to go in there and try to figure out that problem.
Right.
And I did. And we've sold them all over the world. One guy the other day bought one. He sent me an email. He said, I feel like I'm cheating. This is easy. This is too easy. Thank you for doing this. Okay, it is. I mean, once you get it, but it not only takes the distortion out, but it does a lot of other things too. But you can find it also on my Legendary Audio website or on Sonic Studio website. You know, it's called ICE, an acronym. But yeah, you know, as far as the reality singing shows.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, a few years ago, I said, you know, there's got to be a back door. And so I, with my background and this and that, well, I got to know one of the producers, the talent producers, and the guys that go out and find the talent. And so
which program is it?
Well, started off with The Voice.
Okay.
Okay. And so I, you know, being a mastering guy, I get a lot of stuff through and I listen. I'm kind of like the alligator behind the log, you know, just listening and this and that. And if I find something that I think is competitive, it's got to be very competitive and getting more competitive, because if I send them something that's not competitive, then, you know, they
won't make any cut at all.
You know, they don't respond to my email.
They have a lot of levels, right? They do it nationally on a city basis.
Well, yeah, anybody can go out and stand in line for 3 or 4 hours with 7,000 people per city.
Right.
But I can get a private audition if they're good enough. And so anyway, I think I've got 8 people, and they're all great singers, auditions. And only one has got picked, but she was on the show.
So she actually made the show.
She made the show. She got a 4-chair turnaround. And she won the first battle round, and then she won the second battle round, but they didn't choose her. There was some behind-the-scenes politics or whatever, you know.
But great exposure.
Oh, she went from zero to hero overnight.
Yeah, sure.
She was working as a waitress. I set up a website and contact information, and the night of the very first show, I was up all night fielding offers and this and that, you know. I mean, those shows have a tremendous impact if you can get on them. But you got to be really good, and it's getting even more, you know, competitive.
Right.
And you know, if you have a backstory, that helps too. So there's a lot to it, you know. So I was able to do it, and then you know, all of that turns out that I got accepted to audition for America's Got Talent. So you know, anyway, I just one thing after another.
That's a great story.
If it's fun, do it. You know, you know.
It's a great story.
But that's kind of that's kind of like my life in a nutshell. There's lots and lots of other stuff, and I can tell you stories, and we'll do another podcast just on funny stuff that's happened over the years.
We look forward to doing it.
I'm planning on writing a book about, you know, and, you know, stuff happens, especially if you're in the music business.
Sure.
Is a running title. And, I mean, I have lots of stories, a few tragic, but mostly funny stuff, you know. So hopefully in a year or two I'll get that done. But I keep adding on to the stories, so I don't, you know what I mean? So,
that's great.
Yeah, I'm too busy, what they say, too busy chopping the wood to sharpen the axe, you know. Stuff going on. So, but I'm down here in South Padre Island. Health is good, and, you know, got to know you and you know, lots of people through the business here. And
well, you've got a wonderful past and a great future ahead of you. Thanks, Billy Stull.
Thanks.
Sure. Let's take us out with Shake Yo Snake.
like this. Now shake your snake. Next to mine, it's looking funny, but it's a feeling fine. Now shake your snake. Shake your snake. Shake your snake. Shake your snake. Wiggle out and back again. Shake your snake now, shed your skin. Now you got it, hiss and grin. Shake your snake now, do it again. Oh, shake your snake. I said shake your snake. Oh, shake your snake. Shake your snake. I said shake your snake. 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 I said shake your snake. Shake your snake. Oh, shake your snake. Shake your snake.
This is Andrew Clendenin with the World of Texas Music. On the web at WTXM.org. Come visit us there. We'll respond to emails from you. We'd like your comments. Thanks for listening.